Good morning. Welcome to the Gresham-Barlow Board of Education Board Policy Committee meeting. We're meeting this morning with Chris Howitt, Myra Gomez, Tracy Klinger, Sarah Avery, and Cindy Lopez. Thank you. And we have several policies to go over this morning. Some of them we've seen a couple of times. And then I think at the end, there may be an opportunity to suggest a couple policies for future review, but not for this particular meeting. So I know we have seen some of these already, and I'm just gonna let Tracy, you take care. And just a little bit of background. I think you missed the last one, Myra, you were sick. Some of these, we had a question to OSBA because we had the policy, they were recommending delete, and then they were recommending the proposed.
Okay.
So we had a question about why were we not just editing,
Yes.
and why were we losing documented history of how many times it changed. So I wasn't sure if anybody was able to get a definitive answer on that.
We did have a conversation with Spencer down there. And it really is kind of the new model that they're using. A lot of it is about the number of revisions that some policies are needing, that then it just becomes clunky, it
Who's on
doesn't
first?
flow and all of those things. And so it just doesn't.
Okay.
So what I've done, and then the other thing that's happening that we've noticed is there's a lot of ARs that are being pushed into policy.
And that's been going on for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
sometimes we've pushed them back out.
and I think that's part of what's making the policies need to be just kind of rewritten. It's a confluence of lots of different pieces of language. So I have spent a little time trying to crosswalk some of that, trying to help figure out a way to help it make sense to us. Because as Cindy and I were kind of reviewing just even the policies we have left, all of them are, like, many of them are in this situation where it's a delete something, it's an AR squished into something kind of scenario. And so I think it's going to be the way it is, unless we want to push back to OSBA. I think that will really delay our process, though.
The only question that I have about it is, because I tend to be a, what did we do before kind of person. And so I just get nervous about losing, like on this first one that we have, EBC, where the original revision was original was 94. Then we revised it 2002, 2014, 2016. And so in getting a totally new one, it'll say adopted 2025, and it'll look like, did we not ever have one before? That's my concern. So I don't know if we could keep adopted 94 and then revise readopted 2025 and just go with the proposed then, because that is a revised. Does that make sense to you?
I love that idea.
Okay.
Because then we still do have all those pieces. We have our files, right?
Yeah,
We have
yeah,
them.
yeah.
It guides us on when we could go back to look at change if we needed to.
Right. And it's just more that I don't want to have it be where someone looks up a policy and it looks like it's brand new, that we've never had that policy. And likewise, if we have a brand new policy, I want that one to shine as, hey, we're being proactive in something and making a new policy to deal with.
Okay, so add more of the tracking at the top of each
Yes,
policy.
yeah.
When we have a delete.
Yep.
I think that's a great solution.
Okay.
Myra, that feel good to you?
Yeah.
Too? Even if we, I don't know, have a major revision or something like. But at least the dates, I think, is important. I did find with the 3 different topics that we have today, where all of them had these different moving parts.
Right.
I could get a sense of where things went, that it's not so much, there really aren't things that are being left out.
Right.
So for me, it really helped to take, like, if we start with EBC, to have all 3 of them kind of sitting side by side.
Right.
And then I started kind of marking them up. So we've looked at this policy before. Are we ready to move into?
Yeah,
the
I think so.
policy?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've looked at it a few times.
Yep. And I do, so they're proposed. There's basically a proposed, a delete and an update in this group of
Mhm.
policies.
Mhm.
The delete, the one thing I had wondered about was deleting the executive session piece at the end of.
In our previous meeting, we talked about leaving that in, the executive session part that was stripped out.
It
So
is
leave
in
that
the
sentence
executive
in.
session policy though, so it does exist there.
Mhm.
It's, do we want it to,
Exist in both places.
yeah,
Where's it on it here?
So it's
on
on
the
the delete
delete?
page. If you look on the
Yeah, where
delete,
is-
yeah, at the bottom. I'm of two minds. One is redundancy is sort of annoying to be redundant. There, I said redundancy twice, now I'm going 3 times. However, I don't expect a community member or someone who is not well versed in policy searching to look at this one and find out we were in executive session and it says, it doesn't say you can do that. So I kind of think, okay, for the sake of redundancy, yes, I know we can, but just to put it in there clarifies that there may be some things that come up that will be in an executive session.
It's always
Legally.
better to have extra information.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And have it in one place as long as it doesn't turn into one policy, 57 pages,
Mhm.
right? Right.
so we would add it to the EBC one, the emergency plan and first aid.
Yes.
One.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
All the way at the bottom.
Kind of like what they have on the one that was deleted, the one that we had before. The board may use.
Safety threats,
um,
okay, but. The other EBCB. So the language for that executive session is. Executive session related to school safety or a plan that responds to safety threats.
Now, where are you looking at on that?
Safety at the bottom.
Yeah. Sorry, I got ahead of
First
myself.
aid.
Okay,
That's drills and instruction, okay,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
EBC is the right place.
yeah. Right.
So do we wanna look at the proposed plan then and see if there's anything else in there that we need to?
I think we kind of beat this one up a little bit. And I think the earlier question was, do we have copies of the emergency plan in every school office? Do we have someone that's minimally trained, are we making sure if we're saying it in policy, we have those things available?
And this is really referring mostly to, because it also talks about county agency in developing this plan, so there is collaboration between like law enforcement on our. Standard response protocols, those
Mhm.
posters are in all of our schools, and that is the.
Okay.
Primary foundation of a plan.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I think that one is,
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the emergency drills.
okay.
This felt pretty straightforward too.
Yeah.
But some of the changes they. May feel a little more clear.
Double check it. Um. Yeah, I think, and this is pretty much what we've been doing for a while. Right. Let's see here.
And we do have a system for tracking the drills also.
Okay.
How do administrators get trained on that?
On doing, we do a review every fall, or like start of the school year kind of thing. And then if there's something that happens, then we kind of do the like tabletop and, brief different things.
What about for, How often do you guys meet with the local organizations for reunification centers?
So we did a big reunification drill last March or April, and I know they're planning on kind of the next thing this year, so it's kind of an annual thing that they're doing that work. And then, there's been different partnerships with police and fire to review buildings and, you know, kind of be familiar with.
So where does that fall in the scheme of, informing parents that A, we have a reunification plan, and B, how do they know about it before they're in the midst of a crisis and panicking over what's happening? Where is that information?
Some of that is like drafted in the communications that happen, like as it's happening in terms of communicating.
Uh-huh.
And when we did our big unification practice last year, we had students and families as a part of the drill to kind of be part of the feedback.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we went over to East Hill, we set up the whole thing. And there's some layers of that we don't want to be
Right,
public information
I
also.
remember that, yes.
So my just general, not necessarily that it would go in policy, but that does seem like something that would be in the whatever stuff we have that's back to school for parents, you know, when it's
Mhm.
for the elementary, it's in the building, middle school, maybe high school, however that works. Because in the moment, if you're someplace and you hear on the radio that a school is in lockdown and the kids are being moved and something and it's on fire and
Mhm.
there's an earth, you know,
Yeah,
at that moment, I'm not really gonna look back at a note or see a note from Athena and say, what am I supposed to do now? Or who
Yeah.
am I supposed to call because I'm 20 miles away,
yeah,
and who's gonna go get my kid, and what resources do they need to go get my kid? You
yeah.
know, that kind of
They
thing.
do send out the
And I don't know how Parent Square
The
works, if there's stuff
standard
that goes on that.
response.
Uh-huh.
protocol. We send that out to families twice a year.
Okay,
And then, yeah, some of it is. Wouldn't know what to tell parents, right?
Uh-huh,
Like some of
uh-huh.
it is depending on the situation. What site we're using, what the circumstances might
Mhm.
be.
Right.
What
And we
does
could at
that
least
look
tell them
like?
that much, because I think the
Mhm.
biggest thing is, if something's going on, we don't want parents showing up at the school.
They do
Mhm.
anyway,
I know, I know, I know. We don't want them, but they do, I know,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But just trying to get that, because hopefully if it's something that is of that magnitude where kids are having to be
Mhm.
removed in some way, it's not district wide.
Yeah.
You know, at
Well-
that point, it's an earthquake and we're just shutting down,
Mhm.
everybody's going home.
Well,
So,
and I also think it's part of that good reminder, even multiple times a year, like, make sure we have your correct phone number and
Uh-huh.
email and all of those things, because if something's happening, that's how we're gonna communicate in the moment.
Last year, I liked the sandwich boards that were out with the QR codes, because in
Mhm.
elementary, the line starts like an hour before school gets out.
Mhm.
So I like that the QR codes were there for people to just do it from their cars, and like,
Mhm.
an update on it.
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
That was a
okay.
great idea. and
There
I
were
started
some
all the
different tech things
Yeah.
that they were
Mhm.
kind of trying, and some of them worked and some of them were super glitchy.
I did it through the QR code. I thought I was like, I'm gonna sit here and wait. Let me do something.
Mhm. Yep.
And I think it also helps, it's a good reminder for parents as well, who work outside the general area. Make sure we've got your backup person contact as well. You may not be able to get through the roads or whatever. I just remember we had to do
Yeah.
that because both Duncan and I worked on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
And if a bridge was down, we couldn't get home.
Mhm.
So we had to
Mhm.
make sure that we had multiple options. So, okay. All right, so I think as it is, it's good. The other things we were just talking about are more procedural things that,
Mhm.
but I think the policy is.
So
Okay,
those three then would be ready to move forward. We don't have another work session until March. So would we want to?
Policies?
no,
No,
with,
With the board.
we do, but the one that we have.
We have the retreat.
Yeah, we have the retreat, calendar. And we have this next week, nothing. Um. Really don't remember what.
March, or not in March, February fifth is a business meeting, and I do think we will be having a.
Well,
work
I do have
session
I
for
do
other
have a
things.
hold on that for a
Yeah.
work session,
I don't
so.
think we'll have time for policy though.
Yeah, it's that classified,
Oh, right,
employee
right,
hearing
right,
with
right,
that
And audit
okay,
stuff.
okay,
is
okay.
on February.
So it would either be retreat or it would be March. And I guess we can figure that out the next meeting,
Mhm. Okay.
unless there's another system.
And let's see, because most of these are things that, again, were cleanup.
Mhm.
It would be nice to have it in, because like, then it's not getting approved till April, and we're gonna have another.
Round
Yeah,
of
and we
stuff,
have,
yeah.
we have a round that
Super
we're.
far behind.
Because the hold that's on February 5th. We have about 45 minutes-ish to do whenever we have a session before the business meeting.
It's not policy, not
Not for the
hearing.
two agenda.
If it was only policy and that was the only thing, we could
Right.
probably do it, but because we have a classified hearing.
Right.
It's not gonna be fair.
Okay.
I worry about enough time on that day anyway.
Yeah,
We've given that employee a set amount of time.
Well, but it's also audit prep for business meeting that day, needs to happen in that work session.
okay, so. And so if we review it at the retreat. Can it be on there then as a review? It's on there like it's normally,
It would be just, yeah, first
Every-
reading like we do at our work session. First reading, the board would review it, and then it could go on the March
but we could do,
agenda.
if it's posted, we could do a first read adopt. Do you not want to go down that path?
I mean, you could, that's up to the board. I think it's dependent on if the board has enough time to review it.
Mhm. Because most of these, again, are not things that we are gonna mess with the language on.
Right.
We're not gonna
Yeah.
change
Their
things on
I
them.
don't think
Their
it would change
statute.
that much if we did it in adoption, because our retreat's February 28th, and
Right.
then we're literally having the business meeting that next week.
Okay, so we could at least review them then on the 28th and then adopt on March 5th. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we will likely have, I would imagine, another policy meeting before that, so we may have a couple of these
Multiple,
meetings.
yeah.
So we
Uh-huh.
may have a pile of them for the
Okay.
28th, but
Okay,
that's okay.
all right, okay.
Well, no, we had a couple from last year that haven't gone to work session yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're thinking anything we move forward today would go to retreat.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
And if anybody asks questions, I'm gonna tell them to join the policy board. Yes, yes. Cause they're not the ones getting up this early on a Friday morning, and then
Yeah.
a bunch of questions when we're trying to get them.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to say, you know what, you have them, read them.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're one of very few districts that goes this in depth and depth.
Yes,
Serious.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so next
You
one,
tell them, Sarah.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time on our end.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is.
it is, and the time should be so that we can move on.
It's supposed to help expedite the process,
Yeah.
not make it longer.
Yeah, yeah, so the next one, the GCD, they didn't change the number on it, they just did a delete and propose,
Yeah.
and it was clean up to make it.
They really
Wow.
took, is this the one, or is it, no, it's medication I can use.
Well,
So-
3 pages to 6, I'm glad it tightened it up.
So it would be deleting the AR though, and.
Oh, is that why they
the-
put on the
Mhm.
AR in this one?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So and that's, I think one that the superintendent does with cabinet would delete the AR,
Uh-huh.
the board would delete the policy, and then we would have the new policy. And I did go through and just crosswalk, like, where's that first paragraph fall in the new policy, and I didn't see
Right.
anything that was missing or that had been, it really is just a kind of squishing them together
Mhm.
situation. So I feel like if we reviewed their proposed or their new policy and kind of went through the changes there, I'm not concerned that we're losing some of the content from those other two documents.
Well, I wonder on some of it in the ARs are around the steps for the record check
Mhm.
and that before. Because of what they've struck, may not, shall not, I think they're trying to tighten up that
Mhm.
you just have to wait.
Yeah.
You just have to wait for the final
Yeah.
outcome. And not be it subject to this principal said it was okay, this one said I'm gonna wait. It just provides consistency. So I'm okay with doing this one as they suggest. Again, with the same thing, you know, adding the adopted dates and all that stuff.
Mhm. There is a place on page 4. Where there is a choice for a will or a will
I saw
not.
that, and I didn't understand what that meant.
Well, I think will, right? I mean, it. Because I think what they're striking was just the brackets. I think they're striking may, and then they were striking a little bracket around.
No, the.
Which page am I on? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on
It
page
opted to
3,
that it's
sorry.
Not likely to have direct
Let's
determined by the
see.
district will, and then there's will not, you're required to submit an exhibit, I think it should be will. You see that?
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
third
I'm reading.
paragraph.
Yep.
While you're reading that, I'm gonna look, so we have a partnership. Process, and I wanna see what the language is in that also.
What are we doing right now? If they don't have contact with students, we don't.
Will they do a background check? Is that what this
Right,
is?
So the
is that
first one is-
Is
yeah,
that a criminal, that's the same, right?
Yeah,
So then we do require that.
so that's the direct unsupervised contact will.
Yeah.
Or will not begin. Until the return of background check. The next sentence, a
Mhm.
volunteer that's not likely to have it as determined by the district. The question is, will they have to do an in-state criminal records check or not? And I don't know with the language, is a criminal's records check the same as a background check? Is there a degree of information? Or do we just use them interchangeably as vernacular?
That is what I believe, that it's interchangeable,
Okay.
and I'm not 100%. You're thinking it is also. So Cindy used to process all the
Okay.
volunteer requests.
So my only statement to that would be on that third paragraph sentence, starts a volunteer that's not likely to have. We don't know when a volunteer comes in, what they're going to be asked to do, assigned to do, may do. And not likely puts the burden on the staff member to be monitoring that person. If you have someone, and this is reaching, but if you have someone who is not, who should have a background check done, and they don't, and something happens, because we didn't think they were gonna have unsupervised contact, I'd rather be on the safe side. And in the
Anybody
event,
who's in a school.
in the school, because you never know when a teacher says, hey, can you take this kid down to the library? Can you take this kid somewhere? Can you take this kid somewhere? And I would
Even
feel
if,
more,
even if a teacher doesn't ask them, if they're going to the bathroom and they run into it, I don't know, I just.
I would rather have, basically anybody in the building. If you're in the building, there are times, last kid that comes in from the playground, you're out there with them. I just would feel better if all of our volunteers are treated the same. Because I don't know how frequently the background check is done, if it's updated. And so, how long?
Every 2 years.
Every 2, a lot can happen in 2 years. I'd rather at least start with a clean slate and know. But mostly it's the fact that volunteer comes in, we don't know what they're gonna be doing with students. And so to have the separate direct unsupervised, that could happen at any day, any time. And it could be a moment, and a moment is all it takes.
I don't disagree.
Okay,
And like one example that I can think of from being a principal with a field trip happening,
Uh-huh.
is there were times where something in the paperwork didn't get done, or something, there's some reason, right?
Uh-huh.
And what we would often do is then that parent would just be assigned to their own student. They
Mhm.
wouldn't be responsible for other kids in their group, but they would be with their child on the field trip. Because then other students were supervised by other
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
So like there are some interesting nuance kind of things.
Mhm.
I think it does get different at middle and high school when you start to
Uh-huh.
talk about some of like your experiences with theater and some of
Yeah,
those things.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, and even just with, sorry, even with just the, fourth, fifth graders, we're getting a little more independent, and I would just, my comfort level would be, if we're gonna do it for volunteers, we do it for all of them.
Okay.
And that way, again, we can move a volunteer around to do other things.
Yeah.
If you are, because if it's not coded in their volunteer stuff, how does a teacher know?
Right.
This one hasn't been through the background check, and they say, well, you take this kid to this area and do reading with them by themselves somewhere. So, right.
I think the natural default assumption for staff is that if someone is in the building, they have a.
So let's make
Yeah.
it that way. Let's just make it
Yep.
that way.
Okay.
So they, so they will. So on that third paragraph, they will be required to also do one. And, what's the difference between the second paragraph, a criminal background check, and the third paragraph, an in-state criminal records check? We're not that far from Washington. Background check's a background check.
So this is going to allow to help direct. Is a good catch. No,
I think it was probably, if it was implied they weren't gonna have unsupervised contact, we would just do the state one. But again, if we're doing one, a background check's a background check.
is it both?
Do we differentiate?
So I don't remember that part.
Okay.
So
'Cause
we
again,
might need
because
to
we're-
check on
Yeah.
that, like, what do we currently do?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Because it goes on to the next one where it does talk about another jurisdiction. Which could be in or out of the state, could be in this area, could be across the river. So, and are we gonna pay for volunteers? We're gonna pay for that, because that's an option too, where it says individual or district.
and we
District pay.
don't require fingerprinting.
That's your.
Fingerprinting would be for a more
That'd be
comprehensive
for
background. check.
staff.
Okay. Okay, so. So do you wanna look at that paragraph?
So I would want to just check with Athena on exactly what we
Okay.
currently do, so that we're not.
Uh-huh. I don't wanna do a bunch of. Additional money, paperwork and whatever.
Right.
But at the same time. We're allowing people to come in and be with the children.
Yeah, I think like with the fingerprinting, I kind of am leaning like. If fingerprinting were required for a volunteer, then the district would pay for it. But I don't know of a circumstance when a volunteer would be fingerprinted.
I'm not sure what the extent of a criminal check is. If a criminal check is you write down your name and identifying information and they check
And they
it.
run it through the system.
But staff gets fingerprinted, and why is
Mhm.
that? Is it just a deeper level of
Mhm.
background? Good. And then it's got, and we are gonna keep the bracketed language. If a volunteer refuses, then they don't get to, volunteer in your district.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I think they struck the bracket, right? So.
Yeah, they start the
Alright.
bracket. Yep. they redlined the
So
bracket.
the question is really the two types of criminal records check, just to make sure that that aligns,
Uh-huh,
and the question around fingerprinting.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I think, kind of reworking a little bit that taking out, combining the two paragraphs with the unsupervised contact isn't really, it's a volunteer. Period. Not separated by whether
Mhm.
they have unsupervised.
okay.
Okay.
Will that one will come back to committee? We're gonna answer those questions.
Are there other questions that we have?
Oh.
Because I do think that could be pretty straightforward.
I think
in
that would
terms
be
of
pretty
answer
straightforward,
that
because there wasn't
could
anything
explain
else, right?
in committee if we want to move it forward, but are there other? The rest
And
just looks
does-
like
Um,
the maze and roads. So,
and I guess if you're gonna check with Athena on that, or that you guys know already, you said it's every 2 years that they have to do that.
mhm.
Who's notified and how do you know that that's happening? Good question.
It happens within the check-in systems that are in each of the schools now. So every school has like the computer login and it
Uh-huh.
pops up with kind of like, you're due for your, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but you're due for your thing.
Okay, but does it stop you from going into the building that day?
The office staff see that.
Got it,
Mhm.
okay, and should say, hey, you're
You need
behind
your
on
thing.
your.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
and does it let them know then before you get to that point?
I believe there's notifications, but I'm not
Okay,
positive.
okay,
So I'm gonna put.
because that might be a surprise if you show up for the field trip and you don't realize that you're behind on getting
They
your background check.
definitely, they proactively, like, teachers turn in a list, here's who's going on the field trip, office, like, vets that list.
Okay, okay,
So there's that piece for field trips.
it's a lot tighter than it used to be.
It's a lot tighter than it
Okay,
used to be,
okay, okay,
yes,
okay,
for sure.
okay.
So that
Because if we get the answers to this question, then we will bring it forward to February.
Yeah,
Comfortable with
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Okay, so clarification for Athena on page 4, and then questions about notification. To keep up on background checks. I have found that I have to have multiple colors of ink,
I saw
so
you.
I can
Uh-huh.
tell
Yeah,
what my most
yeah.
recent notes are.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
your persons over there?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the elementary educator in me. Okay, medications. At first I was super overwhelmed by all of these
Right,
pages,
right.
and it actually is pretty straightforward. It's just a lot of paper, honestly.
Well, because there's also a big AR that goes with this one.
Yes, and really, the policy gives the overview, right?
Uh-huh,
We know
right,
that,
right.
and the AR gives the details.
mhm,
So then really what the new policy has become is a version of the AR that's now the policy, because it's just a meatier version of the policy with all the steps in it.
Well, except this one, yeah, they do have the AR as it didn't include it in the policy, so they have that, and a lot of ORS stuff. Okay.
So again, this is one, I didn't see anything missing from the AR or the policy, and there's not even many proposed changes to any of the language. It really is just more. There are some brackets for us to look at
in the policy, or the AR,
in the proposed.
in the proposed, okay. And is some of this stuff, I realize that this is kind of in between, I don't know where the cross-reference goes to the student handbook. So are some of these by at least policy referenced in there that if a parent wanted to look up, hey, I need to have my kid bring their asthma medicine,
Mhm.
is it in the student handbook?
I am.
I'm just, was just curious,
90%.
yeah,
I am 90% sure.
because there's so much in here about student activity
Mhm.
regarding it, that it seems like this would be one that would be referenced, not all 9 pages in it.
Right.
Okay,
Let's look back.
oh, that goes to the AR, okay. So are there brackets in the AR?
The first ones are on page 3.
Okay, of the AR, or of the,
They are version 2.
Is an AR that the board still has to approve, or is it
No.
supposed to go to?
yeah, ARs, we've not gotten into approving ARs.
So, yes, with the caveat that OSBA for a while had a list of 10 to 12 ARs that by law the board had to approve.
And is this one of them?
That's what I'm asking. I was like, I
Oh,
don't
oh,
know. If
gotcha.
this is one of
Okay,
the ones that
okay,
The board is
gotcha.
supposed to approve, or
Okay.
typically, I don't know that we've.
Because,
had
yeah,
brackets
where-
in a
yeah, where
AR,
Myra said on
that the
page
board would have
3,
to-
near the bottom, it's near the letter S, the principal
Yeah,
or school or
Or
district or nurse.
yeah.
Um, so who notifies?
Can we say the school? And then that can be, and then so that it's either the nurse or the secretary, it's usually, because schools don't have full-time nurses, so it
No,
can't be the nurse.
No,
So if we say the school, it could either be one of the administrators or one of the receptionists.
because it's probably not the principal who
No.
gave them, they don't, they're, no. They
Well,
could,
so there's a bigger bracket, this is weird, so there's a bigger bracket, so right under the 4,
I see
the
that,
bracket
yeah.
starts where there's 2 paragraphs that are fully in brackets.
Yeah.
And then within that is the brackets for whether it's principal or school or district nurse. Because we would decide we want to include that whole thing about administering opioid antagonist. And then within
oh,
that,
is that what all that is? Where does that,
It's right under.
you see right under the number 4.
Yeah.
bullets,
yeah,
so the bracket starts there.
oh, I
it
see,
ends
next to the
down
little
here.
curly Q brackets there,
Yeah.
and it goes.
And then the first decision is, do we keep those 2
Got
paragraphs?
it, got it.
And then within that,
But that's
what
only,
brackets do we?
and it's only if the schools have the short acting opioid antagonist.
And don't, I think we do,
We
I
have
think,
Yeah, because that's Narcan.
Narcan.
yeah, yeah. And I thought there was another one that they had out there recently, they were talking about, this was like recently within the last year and a half. That they were recommending that schools have. So I think, yes, I mean, what would be the consideration for not waiting for health assistance to show up? Emergency medical care to show up? Is the student in crisis at that point?
And then say the school.
I think the school is. Okay,
Yeah, because then it could be the principal or the nurse, or if they would.
if they have to
Okay,
have a nurse that
nurse.
day. And I'm pretty sure if that happens, somebody's going to know that it happened to be able to tell them.
Yeah.
There's going to. Did you find it, Tracy?
Can administer it and be like, well.
Yeah, yeah, we just thought we'd give it to him.
On the policy,
No,
The AR,
yeah.
on the AR.
On the AR,
Okay,
yes,
that's right.
that's where you are, yeah, page 3 on the AR, about
There
the
we
middle
go.
of the page, so number
Thank you.
4. Under that little O that's on the
Administration.
proposed. So it starts the bracket there with maybe administered. So first of all, I guess they're asking, are we going to administer? Yeah, I think
Mhm.
so. And then the next inside bracket of the big bracket, suggesting that it's the school will notify the parent or guardian.
Mhm.
That way it's whoever in that building
Administered.
is designated
Mhm.
to tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes.
So yes, we have it. So-
Yes, we have it, and yes, we would administer it if it was medically called for, and the school,
The school would notify.
right? Because district's kind of big. I mean, if it
Yeah.
happened at Powell Valley, is Hogan Cedars gonna tell them, or you?
Right.
you know,
that slows down the communication.
yeah,
And even principal doesn't feel appropriate because it might be the health assistant, or it might be,
Right, I was like, it could be,
you know.
but like you said, if the nurses weren't there that day,
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Could be a counselor, could be, you know, anybody.
I mean, it's really like we do with any medical thing, right? Someone's gonna get in touch with the parent and
And the
we
first,
need you to
the
come, or
closest
this is
person
what's
to
happening.
do that,
Yes,
right, and
yeah.
not say, well, chain of command says I have to wait for the principal to
Yeah,
come back in the
right.
building. We don't want to delay it, okay. Any other brackets? I don't see.
Yeah,
any
page
others.
7,
Okay,
page 7, letter D, that, I don't know why the number 8 is in brackets.
except for short acting opiate
But-
antagonists.
Okay, so we keep it.
Do we, no,
No.
no, I don't think so.
Right.
Because if we've just said in this other one that if we give one of those to a student, when a short-acting opioid antagonist is administered, we tell them. But then if we say that a student can't except for, I don't. No, a student just can't, a student can't.
They're
Step
a one-time,
through-
they're a one-time use thing, right, aren't they?
Mhm. So, I
But
mean,
if a student
yeah.
gives one to another student, how? Where's the notification chain? What's gonna happen? Where is that at? I mean, I don't want a student not to get help. But do students also understand that they're not gonna get in trouble if they get medication from the nurse or from the office or whatever? And I don't know what that looks like when someone needs the opioid, and I don't know what that looks like, what's happening.
well, it's. I think what's different is it's not like insulin, right, that somebody's carrying in their backpack for their medical need. Clearly, you would not use that with somebody else. A lot of people are carrying Narcan
Right, right,
in the event that someone might need it anywhere in the community,
on the bus.
classroom, on the bus, whatever.
Okay.
So it's different with Narcan.
Okay,
And all of the training that I've had is that Narcan is not something that can cause harm to someone if you administer it, and that's not actually what's wrong with them, right?
okay. There's not an allergic reaction, there's not makes it worse if you give it, it's worse if they don't have anything because.
Right, if you think that's what's going on, it's better to administer it and not second guess
Okay.
that,
Okay,
and
okay,
if we didn't have that exception in our policy and we just said you shouldn't share your stuff, right? And a student did. Are we really gonna discipline or do something to a kid that just saved a peer's life because they
Yeah.
happen to have Narcan in their backpack,
right,
right? I don't
right.
know. The
Okay.
policy
Okay, that
changes any
explains
of
it. I
that,
wasn't sure
right?
that there was a danger in giving someone Narcan if they didn't need it.
That
It
is
sounds
my
like there's not.
understanding.
Okay,
So I would
Sounds
still err on maybe not. Adding. Does that make sense? Like,
well,
kind of a
except, let me
philosophical-
get back to where that has that. I mean, so leaving the footnote is what you're saying.
I'm saying if we
You were
don't leave
saying-
it, does it really?
Oh, no,
cause
no, yeah,
harm
yeah, leaving it, sorry.
If we remove it,
No, leave it. Sorry, I said the wrong thing. So leave it. Right, put it in.
Like, what she was saying is, we're not gonna punish kids with, like,
Right.
whether or not it's in there or not, we're not gonna
But,
punish kids.
so
for
the
it.
sharing and borrowing of any medication with another student is strictly prohibited. If there's kids out there that have shared aspirin, I don't know about it. I know they are.
right,
Right,
but
but
that does
except
need
for
to be the
short-acting
policy.
opiate antagonists. So I think that works, doesn't it? What you just said. That we don't want them to share them. Except for Narcan. Is that what you're saying?
I'm
Did I muck that
saying
up?
if a kid does share aspirin and we don't
Uh-huh.
know about it, we're not gonna say, kid, you violated school policy or district policy, and this is now what's gonna happen.
We're gonna have a talk. with you that-
Narcan would be like aspirin, right? Like, if a kid did
Except
administer
it's
it,
it's not, because you just said that. That Narcan does not have a negative effect on someone if there's no reason to take it. A student may not realize that you're allergic to aspirin, and you normally get Tylenol at home. And you interchange those words, hey, do you want an aspirin? Yeah, and they give it to them, and they have a reaction to it, because they're thinking, at home, we call it this. But it's not that, so an aspirin could be dangerous, could be, I know they.
And Narcan probably could be for somebody, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's a,
Are we the aspirin police? Do we go around and, I mean, what would be the? Because I think that's probably been, sharing aspirin has been going on.
cough drops, like technically medicine, right? Like,
Yeah, and Narcan is not a prescription, right? Because I was thinking we could get by with saying non-prescription or prescription. Cold medicine, cough drops, aspirin. Mhm. So, so what do you want to do with that one? I mean, is the fact that it's strictly prohibited, is that the? Is discouraged? That softens it, that makes it sound like we're just letting kids do it, but if they already are, again, what's the discipline?
it is proposed by OSBA, so there's legal backing for it to be there,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, if we think through process wise,
Mm-hmm.
they've added that for a reason.
Uh-huh.
So how much do we want to question that?
And is
I
it-
guess my
I mean,
default
is
would
it
be
there to cover us in terms of litigation if
maybe,
a student shares something and there's an
And
allergic
there's a
reaction,
reaction.
and it's like, well, you're not supposed to do that.
that
Or
could
they
be.
didn't know that you're the fifth person that I've asked for aspirin, and I'm hoarding them up, and I've got 20 of them now, I'm gonna take it one time.
Right.
You know, that
Yeah.
could be something as
Yeah.
well, so.
I think my default would be to trust OSBA's recommendation, which
Okay.
is to add it.
Okay, and the only exception is the,
Mhm.
okay. All right,
I mean,
Laura. are you
to your
okay with
point,
that?
Sarah, they're the ones that have the lawyers looking at it, right?
Right,
So add it.
Cause that was my thought, I was like, if they're strictly prohibiting something, I would guess it's like a litigation protection, like.
Mhm, that
Uh-huh.
makes sense, yeah.
yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh, they want us to choose between a period and a semicolon on the next page.
What? They're giving us that kind of latitude, I don't know.
Oh,
because
because
then
it
they've added
depends on
bracketed
J,
language,
it
yeah.
depends on J.
Yeah.
Phew,
So-
there's a really.
Because
So
there's-
if you don't include those brackets, semicolon, you do include the. J
Exactly,
brackets.
okay, I needed to keep looking, like, why are we making? grammar?
Oh.
That is funny that they don't usually think of that.
Why? I mean, the first part of that sentence, a student is permitted to administer medication to themselves, may be monitored. The district allows non-prescription sunscreen? I don't know. I guess I'm blessed that I'm not allergic to a bunch of stuff, but are people allergic to para-aminobenzoic acid? In sunscreen?
I didn't even know there was.
There must be, I was like, it's an
prescription sunscreen.
ORS, so there must be something.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
that
Oh, my
prescribed
word.
Sunscreen.
I would think, yeah, I could kind of see if someone has a medical condition that's making them sensitive to sunlight.
Right, no, I just didn't know
Yeah.
there was such a thing.
Yeah,
I thought you
yeah.
just get 150 some FPF and be good.
Right, right. Um. I guess we're okay with that.
I mean, that's kind of,
I think so.
Like, okay.
Okay. All right. Those lockers are not gonna be big enough.
so then we're adopting this, what I hear us saying is we're adopting the semicolon
Yes, we're adopting the semicolon
And adopt
and
J.
J.
and that, okay. All right, grammar counts. Okay. Um. And then, let's see. It's a bunch of
I think those
brackets.
brackets D, E, and F are current practice.
Okay,
Things
that
have
all
to
makes
have
sense.
the
Yeah, here's a
original
baggie of stuff to give
prescription
my
stuff.
kid. Yeah.
Um,
And then do we wanna say school again in F, or do you want a district?
An initial by two individuals.
So it's in about the
That's-
middle of the paragraph F. Any
Yeah.
discrepancies will be reported to who?
Documented, any discrepancies will be reported to the school, and it's not necessarily the nurse.
No,
I would say it's to the school principal.
and
Are we taking out nurse? Cause it does say nurse or principal.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
so
so
we could
to
leave
the
it in,
school
yeah.
nurse or principal, yeah,
okay,
but not the district nurse or principal.
Yeah.
no.
And you know, we do have two people count medication when
Yeah.
it comes in, yeah,
Okay,
so that's all current,
so those
practice.
brackets come out.
yeah.
And do we have space in a non-food refrigeration for medication that has to be kept cold?
I know, like at North, we added a refrigerator in the health room.
Okay,
But
Every restaurant
there
has
was
one too
some
that I've
food in there,
seen.
but there was like a drawer or a
okay,
compartment. I don't believe all of our schools have.
because I think that's one of those, it's not supposed to be in where there's food, because it's the. Something could come out of the medication on the food.
Cross contamination.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it'd be a good idea to, check if there's those many refrigerators in each health room
Mhm.
or each school for, just for
So that's
medication.
number two. So what is current practice?
yeah. And they make really cute little mini fridges and cute little table toppers.
And that might be what's happening.
Yeah, so
It's
it
a
does
unique
say actually
situation
down
in a
there,
brand new
yeah,
school,
sorry, I
yeah.
read down further past it, medication required to be stored in a locked box. In the
In
refrigerator
a refrigerator.
or in a separate refrigerator
Yeah.
used just for storage, so,
I can
okay,
confirm that.
yeah, okay. Okay.
Access medication storage will be done to the principal and designated personnel. So designated personnel in three would include other office staff, because it's not always the like, health assistant.
Okay. All right, and so that bracket is coming off too, that we're saying, yes, all those brackets are in there,
Yeah,
okay. I'm glad this one was simpler.
sorry.
No, it's good, it's good.
Well, What is this like? Well, we're already doing that, so yeah. we
Yeah.
can take the brackets
Mhm.
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
Communication supplies, that's all pretty standard.
did we dispose of it?
For, number 10.
Yeah, disposal,
It says students, parent or guardian up to age, isn't it 14 when kids get to go to the doctor by themselves?
Mhm.
Right, so should we add something like that? By the students, parents or guardians of children under whatever age? Because it won't be the parent going to pick up the medication for high schooler.
I honestly don't know how that works. I don't know that we just turn it over to a high schooler though.
however, if the student is taking something that
That the
they,
parent doesn't
that
know.
has been prescribed by the doctor for the student, and the student is of an age that can do that, and then you send that medication home to the parent. Could be a problem. You know what I mean?
And yeah, I'm just thinking what would have to be administered at school instead of outside of.
Like, doesn't
school.
insulin need to be refrigerated, right? So. if
But I
they-
would hope that a parent knows that a kid's on insulin,
Right, I'm just,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know all the
Uh-huh.
medications, so if there is a medication that has to be stored.
So, but this is for the we're talking about 10, right?
yeah,
So if the parent doesn't know about it, they're not gonna come pick it up and then we would dispose it. right? I mean, isn't that like?
Oh, so we're not gonna
Medication
send it to
not
them.
picked up
All right, so if they're
Yeah.
not.
at the end of the year,
Okay,
yeah,
That's what
will
I'm
be
talking about. Like,
disposed.
so,
Okay.
yeah, so I'm just saying to add by the student's parent, guardian, or student age, whatever. That's what I'm
gotcha,
saying.
gotcha. Hmm,
I wanna say it's 14, but I could be.
It is 14.
okay,
I guess I'm thinking back to there's language around kids having the medication on them. Right, like if kids are administering to themselves, there's a whole process for that. Um. There's written permission required for kids to have medication to self-administer. Just wondering where those things start. Like what? Cause all of this is, if they're gonna self-administer medication, they need to have written permission for the parent or guardian.
So we say it early on, if under 14.
None of this, I don't see anything, it says a student, including a student in grades K through 12.
So I think they need to check that. Or say something, because if a kid is taking medication or is under treatment that the parents don't know of, then the parents would come after us because it policy says K-12.
So what about kids over 14?
Yeah.
With meds? It's, parents don't know about.
cause I can think of some other medication they would be on that their parent may not know about. But may
This
not.
is where it's great to have a school-based health center medical partner.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this one just popped into my head.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Okay,
So that,
So that-
that's messy, and that could have implications for lots of different layers of this
Yeah,
policy, or this AR.
yeah, okay. Um,
Um,
and then, the last one, so we got disposal, and then under the subset 10 BCD, next to that big letter D, prescriptions won't be flushed down the toilet. I mean, that's kind of training with
mhm.
staff, right? And making sure that there's places around the building. Where do they put their sharps? Is there a place in the office that?
There's one of those
Is there
red
just
sharp
one? Is there
containers.
just one of those?
Mhm.
Okay.
And do we know, does the MAR contain all the stuff
That's what I was just
bracketed
looking
in
at,
there?
yeah.
All of that's right. Language.
But that is all.
Because was that all in
in-
the AR before?
Yeah, let me just look. The delete AR is right here. Okay, even on the disposal one, there's a little bit more. So disposal of medications that we were just talking about.
Mhm.
Medicate, that whole medication not picked up by student's parent or guardian at the end of the school year. Our current AR does say medication not picked up by the student's parent or guardian or the student when allowed pursuant to
Oh,
different ORSs
okay.
at the end of the
okay,
year or within 5 days.
Okay,
So should we add that same language to
Yeah.
this one, since it's already there?
So add back, we'll need to dig into what those ORSs are
mhm,
to,
I don't want a parent to sue because their 17-year-old is taking medication without the knowledge.
right, right.
in AR, in old AR.
What page is it on the old AR?
6. And down it's 8B.
Yeah.
8B. So that's an important piece there.
Okay.
Oh, that's emergency response. Sorry, it's 9A.
Okay. Okay, right, I see.
It references these ARs a couple of times. So in our proposed, there are not ARs referenced at the end either.
ORSs.
Yeah, sorry. Because even in the emergency response one. There is a statement. Check first reactions, available staff. It does reference students being allowed to seek medical care without parental consent. Pursuant to. Oh my gosh, this is. This is the policy.
I think it's interesting, Sarah, that tomorrow will be kept in paper or electronic, and then it's got a footnote about the paper. It's very coloring indicates right out, and not in pencil.
Or use white.
So I
Yeah.
kind of want to loop back to Spencer and ask him why the ORSs are removed from the new. They're
Uh-huh.
in the definitions at the beginning.
Well, there's some other places, like when you go to the next page, page 10 of the new AR, and it's got records, OARs listed, and it's got some ORSs listed.
On page 10.
On page 10 at the bottom, it lists, that, if the school in its best knowledge they have, something happens, they can't be liable under that ORS, but that's kind of,
But any of the reference to the.
Do you think maybe they took that or the reference to the OR because they added all of that non-liability language? You see that long bracket under non-liability?
I think what I'm confused about is this whole thing around. 14-year-olds. I feel like that is missing
Yeah.
from their policy.
I think so too.
And they do reference back on page 8, they had an ORS that was referenced about, oh, that was about the sunscreen. So where they have an ORS, usually we list those at the bottom of the policy so that we know which ones.
I think it's funny that they worried about the no prescription or prescription sunblock, but not the kids.
Well, somebody must have sued over that. Somebody must have put sunscreen on and they got a
Or rash
skin
or
reaction.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And there's a training OAR in here.
They have to be 15.
Oh, 15,
Yeah.
okay.
It's 15.
All the other ORSs are a minor 15 years of age or over.
But that's not the the medical one.
Yeah, it's cause like the ORS is like birth control, right? So,
Yeah,
but
what
it
age
says
is that?
15.
That's the law?
That's the ORS, is
Oh,
For doing it yourself.
that your parent, you don't need parental control.
I just took Lynette out to a doctor's appointment. She's not 15 yet, and they asked her for permission for me to go in with her.
I know.
Well, that might be different though, because when my kids
Maybe you're
were,
an aunt and not a parent.
No, we said I was, we always say I'm her mom.
because I just remember even when my kids were early teen, 12 or 13, the doctor would always say, do you want your mom in here? So it was so they could have a conversation with their patient, but they weren't prescribing
So it
it.
had nothing to do with the age.
No, it was more,
I
it was
asked
more
her
kind of the,
Yeah,
a 9-year-old, they wouldn't ask that because a 9-year-old,
Right,
you know,
okay.
you say I don't want
look
mom.
into this.
Yeah,
And maybe they changed it, maybe they upped it.
And like Donna and Carla both, I mean, Donna oversees all the health
yeah.
services, so I'd like her
Oh, Ravenburg,
perspective, and then
okay.
Carla's just all her work with school-based health center, trying to
Okay,
figure that out. I feel like
Okay.
there's more information there that might really help
Okay.
us be more clear. Um. I think this one needs some more work.
and then there's a whole section, that's bracketed, the non-liability.
I think that one we should include all of it, because it's
Yeah.
all about not getting.
Yeah.
not being held liable.
Yeah,
So might have for yours, mental or emotional treatment, that's 14. The birth control is 15. I guess
So what about regular practice? Like just a cold, I took her in for a cold.
there's more 14
But
for
we have
that one. I
13?
think the only
Okay.
one that says 15 is the
Birth
birth
control.
control.
so yeah, the next one is all about.
So the non-liability stuff we're all
I
comfortable
think,
with.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of it should.
I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
main, so the main question is really about age of students
Uh-huh.
and how that impacts just overall policy.
Yeah.
Right,
Where it might be referenced in our previous AR that now it's missing, and was that intentional for a reason we don't understand?
Right,
Or do we then want to add it?
Yeah.
Is the question.
and if it's not gonna be included, would a high schooler be able to sue us for disclosing information to their parents?
right,
Mhm.
right, right.
Because if we have to get parent consent. Or I mean, hand over things to parents, then,
Mhm.
And they'd be like, why are you taking this?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
So that one's kind of a.
And then these others are just deletions from the additions to the new one, right?
But there is a policy change too, right? Like there's a. Now I'm confused with
No.
what they're asking us to do.
I don't think so. I think it's after there.
It looks like there's
Sure.
a deletion of the
Of the
policy,
policies that we just
with
went over.
JHCD and JHCDA. So
Yeah.
that's becoming JHCD for the control policy. Still named medications,
Yeah,
to be extra
yeah.
confusing,
Version 2.
yeah. Well, the one, so also our version that's being deleted says version 1, so is that a difference between? I don't know if I wanna open that can of worms, but.
This proposed is version 2.
Right,
Okay.
but our ones that are being deleted say version 1. So is that
Well, I
correct
wonder
too, that
if-
we're adopting a version 2 instead of version 1, and that's. what
we're
we
adopting
delete,
version,
but-
we're adopting their version too.
Right,
Yeah, and I don't know what I've got my pages mixed up there.
And you see there's too many pages. Chris.
I know.
Version 1 in comparison to version 2. Version 2 is shorter.
Well, the policy code is just, because they're getting rid of the GHCBA portion of the policy code.
I guess, I'm guessing you're right, Sarah, that this probably has some of the biggest exposure to liability, which is why they're trying to cover
Yeah,
us
get all of the,
as best they can. Okay.
And in just reading the version 2 of just the medications policy, I don't see anything very general in comparison to what we just did with the AR.
It- So,
well, I guess we need to confirm, because we just talked through a bunch of the brackets on the AR. I guess we need to confirm if that's one that the board officially needs to approve, or if that's still just a cabinet.
cause yeah, it's, well, okay, so. Cause we've got medication, version 2. That has JHCD and JHCDA, right? That has 3 pages to it,
Mhm,
okay,
it's proposed,
yes,
yes.
and we have for deletion. That one,
Mhm,
same thing, to delete it,
mhm.
okay,
Well, the difference is they're getting rid of the GHCDA, it's now becoming just GHCD. For the proposed.
mhm.
Title remains the same, the code is gonna be slightly different.
So
Oh,
what was
that's weird.
JHCDA?
Okay.
It was just combined, there wasn't a separate one for that one.
So
And I don't know
then,
why, sometimes they do a slash like that and sometimes they don't.
okay, and then the medication. The AR. Matches because it doesn't have the A on it.
Mhm.
But, well, yeah, we're
JHCD,
deleting the old one. that did.
yes, okay. Okay,
So it's deleting our current version 1 policy and AR with a new version 2 policy and AR.
right, and we can catch all the brackets then for everything.
And you'll ask about the.
Yeah. you can ask
You'll
about
ask
age.
about-
Age, I thought you said H. I'm
I
like,
thought
I
it
didn't
said
hear
age.
it. I'm like,
Age.
age, yes. I'm
Other
gonna,
age.
yes, I will have Carla and Donna review the AR
Yeah.
from their lens and what actually happens in our schools. And have them investigate, and probably Carla reach out to Wallace about Wallace's perspective about the age 14 thing. And I also want to ask Spencer the same question. And ask him about. Is the AR a cabinet or a board thing? I don't, and why would that maybe help us? Because we've asked how many times, Sarah? Which ARs live where,
Yeah.
with who?
And the question
Right.
is always like, oh, we don't have a list anymore because it's changing, we're trying, the question we got, or the answer we got last year was, oh, well, we're trying to put, combine all of the ARs that were board approval with the
Yep.
policies.
Right,
I was like, but my question becomes for this because, well, they're deleting an AR, but then proposing one.
Yeah,
So like, is this still a board approved one?
well, and there's a layer of it, if you're getting rid of version 1 of a policy and you have a version 1 of an AR. To move to version 2, then you do need a version 2 that
Yeah.
aligns, so then I
Right.
get it from that standpoint, and I don't know that anyone's. Territorial about who makes the decision about a medication AR,
Right.
like, I don't think,
right,
just wanna make sure we're
This is
doing.
again for our
That's
act, it's like,
okay.
is this something the board needs to take action on? Or
Right.
can we just approve
Right.
it through cabinet like we usually do?
right,
Yeah.
right.
So this
Okay.
one's messy,
And we'll be coming back to the committee. I have you.
Okay.
yeah,
And so here's where I kind of feel like I'm on the AR part. Not approving it by the board. However, making the board aware that there's a policy
Right.
and there's a whole lot of implementation of it
Mhm.
that
And I think
is,
you should send that out as an email before the meeting.
Yeah.
It usually is when she sends out
Yeah,
the
but
notice.
I know she does, but
Okay.
like for you to say specifically this one.
Like,
That
if we
this
have
one
some
is-
long
Yeah,
policies that
yeah,
are gonna
right.
take some time for you
That
to review
have-
ahead of the meeting.
Well, and that
Yes,
have some
because-
ARs that are for your information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
So-
because I don't want
Okay.
them to be asking, I can see at least two people asking a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Wanting to change things.
And yes, and
Yeah.
then sending it back.
Gotcha. I agree.
so
Okay.
the policy then would live with the board to take action on, the AR would live with the district in terms of that implementation piece.
Right.
And you have to know that both pieces are
Yes, and this is just
updated to a
FYI.
new version.
Yeah. And so the board in this case will see this AR,
Uh-huh.
but it's not to go over it with a
No.
fine tooth
Mhm.
comb.
It's not a discussion item.
No.
And really the conversation for the board is, are we switching to version 2? And if
Uh-huh.
2, then the district would adopt the practice
Yes.
around version 2 of the AR. Yeah.
Mhm.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We do not have another policy committee meeting on the calendar schedule. So I don't, well, not great, because we have
And
like
we
a
have a
huge
list.
list of.
You're saying we need to schedule more, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so did
Very nice.
or was there like a couple months where OSBA got kind of behind a little bit? Or was it just as stuff came in? from
I think a little
legislature,
bit of both. Like,
You know, resetting some.
We are a
things?
bit behind in terms
Okay.
of how fast we've been.
And
moving.
there were also some policies that we thought we had to do that had some Title IX changes in them, and now with decisions
now
of
have
Title
I-
IX, we've been
Okay.
notified not to do
Okay.
those.
And so we might have, here's, can I bring up the two that I was thinking about?
Yeah.
And they may be ones that we bring to the retreat. Both of them are from OSBA, from going to convention. One of them is a policy around the use and expectation of using artificial intelligence. And not banning it, but how do you use it in a way that's responsible? So they had a sample policy about that.
IPJ.
Yes, yeah.
That one's on the list, and
Oh.
it came in November.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, and we hadn't, I haven't,
ton of
where's
people.
that list at? Does that just come to you guys or is
It's just
that?
that-
do we
Yeah,
have that?
Spencer sent it our way.
So what Spencer sent out for the policy update.
Oh, which was kind of like I got that note the other day that said, you're the person in charge, please log in, and I'm not
Yeah,
in
I mean,
charge.
you get, but that's, we are in charge, but that's the email where that list comes from.
Oh, so I should look at that then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so artificial intelligence, IKJ. And then the other one that has been having some conversation, I think it came up as well, and they had several sample policies about cell phone and mobile device policy. And kind of getting around as well to some of it being age specific, grade level specific.
Yeah.
And probably for the board, some of the conversation will be around making sure that we're clear on the why. Why are we doing this? Why is this in the best interest of kids, education, the school climate, all those kind of things? And I think Mr. Cook has a sample, one that came from COSA. And trying to make sure as well that we don't have to recreate the wheel on that one. There's lots of them out there, and I'd like to know which ones have been more familiar, or not more familiar. Thank you. And I did just see the headline, Portland Public going to a ban of sorts, of restrictions, and so I haven't fully read the article, but so I kind of like that they're gonna try it first.
No, no, Topping has had it before.
Well,
So did they have it? It just kind of wasn't as publicized.
No, I
Was it?
shared the article with you guys.
Oh,
last year,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, that was last year.
Yeah, North.
And that's probably why I was looking at it then when I was at OSBA. But they had a lot of questions, and it was very interesting because at the convention then, you're there with other board members who happen to be parents as well.
Yeah.
The conversation was very interesting about board member hat. Of course, we want to have a policy around cell phones. Parent hat, except for my kid.
Yes.
Yeah,
I want my kid to have it with them at all times.
because
in
my
case
kid
they-
is responsible.
Well, and my kid, I need to get a hold of them. They need to get a hold of me.
Yes.
What if there's a crisis?
My kid has found ways around that and has sent me emails and Google Docs now.
Yeah,
so there is work so many of our schools have some kind of cell phone policy, which is what
Uh-huh.
your daughter's experiencing.
So
And so
individuals,
there's
so
work
schools within the
groups.
district have it?
Mhm.
Oh, that
Yeah,
is.
like middle schools don't have it, they don't have it during the day,
Mm-mm.
and I
Mhm.
really,
So there's a work group that's
Yeah,
being pulled
okay.
together by John to
Uh-huh.
start to pull all those pieces together in terms
So
of
that we can have a
common
district,
practice.
yeah,
And what is the policy that then supports whatever that practice
because
is?
it's that combination of, yeah, building to building, teacher to teacher, so they know what their rights and
Mhm.
abilities are, so they don't get caught sideways with a parent. And then, my question is, what's the consequence?
Mhm.
What's the teeth that's part of it? And
Mhm.
so middle school, I don't know what they do,
they just don't,
So it-
they have to
well,
be
it-
in their lockers all day.
but what if they're
Yeah,
not?
and so at Gordon Russell, it's like a 3-tiered, it was like the first offense is it gets like. Or you get a warning, I think the second offense is it gets taken away for the rest of the day. Third offense is like your parent or your guardian
Has to come pick it
getting
up.
getting
Get it.
called in to get it, and you're gonna have a conversation with them, they have to pick it up at the office.
Okay,
Springwater has them.
I know
Gray has
Springwater,
them.
well, they've had one for like 3 years.
Yeah, so it's kind of pulling all those pieces together.
Okay.
So maybe what we need to start with at retreat is John giving an update of like what's going on and what has
Mhm.
this group that's meeting started to get into
Right.
place. Then the policy level of that is like, what policy do we need to support that
Right.
work?
Right, right. And ODE,
Um,
yeah, has a, as of October 2024, they have a notice
Mhm.
about it as well, so.
And the
Um,
AI stuff, John and Jeff had worked on drafting some AI guidance, not policy, but some guidance.
uh-huh,
And one of the things that we're experiencing and hearing is policy can't keep up with AI,
Right.
right?
right,
So
right.
the policy has to
Did you
be
want one of these?
general
I've got an
enough
extra one.
because
Okay.
AI is
Oh.
changing every
They
minute.
gave
Uh-huh.
it, they gave us that. And that was because that was a keynote speaker at OSBA.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he talked about. He said, it's changing. You can't stop it. Genie's out of the
Mhm.
bottle.
Mhm.
But how do you make it work for you?
Yeah.
And how do you make it work for staff?
Yeah.
How do you allow staff to save time?
Mhm.
And how do you have kids, and also teaching kids how to recognize
Yeah.
things?
Mhm.
Because it's not all just pictures, it's not all images and ways of supporting, and again, it gets back to that why.
Yeah.
Having kids understand about research and things that are accurately researched and
Mhm.
verified.
Mhm.
And because the speaker was very good, and I did this one, the few, I bought his book. And he kind of equated a little bit to technology is always scary when it first comes out.
Yeah.
And then how does it become
Mhm.
practice, and what practice do you want to encourage?
Mhm.
And then he really got into a conversation about, if the goal is to write a 5-page paper because you're going to write a 5-page paper,
Mhm.
is that really something that's a goal that's not really applicable?
Right.
Versus the goal is to do research and is to do this and to find information and
Mhm.
craft it in a way that is
Mhm.
being able to send the information out. But the volume versus content was kind of where he was saying, drive the conversation.
Mhm.
And he did give some really interesting options of how teachers can use it to provide prompts for kids
Mhm.
and how to verify information. And if you put it in and you look at it, run it through the filter, what does it think you're saying?
I think that's an important thing. So in one of the presentations I heard early on about AI is you have to think human, AI, human in terms of process, right? A
Uh-huh.
human needs to really be clear with AI about what it's needing and kind of what those parameters are. So the communication with AI spits something out. It then goes back to a human, right?
Mhm.
To then do the vetting, to do the
Right.
critical thinking about what's there, to do the double checking. And then there was another thing that was kind of off, but like, it was fascinating to me, like ask AI how to tell AI what you want. So
Oh,
I tried that with some, like a whole data
I'm
set.
not
I was
familiar with
like,
AI at all.
so it was
oh,
like
I played with it.
asking,
It was-
posing a question, like,
Yeah.
how do I, what steps do I need to take to prompt AI to do this with this data set? And it gave me like a list of directions, which was like, prompt it to clean up your data to do this. And then prompt AI to do this, and then prompt AI to do this.
Wow. And that's what he was talking about with the teacher component,
Crazy.
that you could use it in that way to do the assignment, to what do I want the kids to do? How do I want them to do it?
I think using it for prompts or like because
Mhm.
or whatever, I
Yeah.
think that's great.
I started looking
Not
at
to
it
provide
for-
student feedback or to grade for you.
No.
No.
Totally
no.
agree.
I started looking
And
at it
like
for
when I have to
reviews,
do
it's
a
like,
grant
take
summary,
these two
like
paragraphs.
all this
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say,
Verbatim,
I
type
can
it
put in
or
my
type
list of
it.
Yeah.
bullet points.
Yeah.
Like, okay, summarize down the main points.
Create a two
I
hundred and
tend to
fifty
be
word
very
narrative,
dry in some of
creating
my
these
stuff,
points.
so I use it to add a bit of puff to it.
Right. Okay, so.
All right, so we out of-
Meeting.
We're gonna close this meeting, we got everything, stuff's
We
gonna
have to
go.
Schedule, we have nothing on the books for another policy meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know if we need to look at calendars now, or if you wanna try and schedule that
Let's do
later.
it now since we're here.
And we know we have a lot. Thank you for keeping us on track, sir.
My only free Friday is the 31st. I don't have a free Friday until March after that.
So I have the
Well, yeah,
31st.
so we don't have to do Fridays, we can do.
Well, Fridays kind of just works.
Fine, I don't
They
care,
were, yeah. And they
Yeah.
work because at this point, trying to add a different day
Yeah,
would just,
Did you
I'm
say the
used to
31st
Fridays. The
tomorrow?
31st works for me. Well, we have enough stuff. We'll get answers from OSBA, hopefully.
but
And
I,
if we
Well, I guess
don't,
that's the
there's
question,
other
is, like,
policies.
There's other
we could
policies
jump
we
to.
haven't,
Right.
haven't worked on.
on the
so.
31st, I do have a work meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Cause I didn't, we didn't have anything, so I scheduled work.
Okay, and is that a,
We're still,
almost, yeah,
Finish
we're
the
just about finished, yeah, okay.
So I can meet after 9 or 8, but then we have to be done by 9.
Cause are you going someplace to do it?
It's a
then, or-
virtual meeting.
Okay,
Are you done by 10?
I am done by 10.
Is that too late for you with the show?
I mean, I can make that work, I can have Cheyenne open. That day, so yeah, we can. go ahead and
It
do
feels like an hour just isn't quite
And
enough.
not, yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
So I can be like, if, my meeting will end at 10 and I can be here by 10:15.
Okay, okay. So yeah, we can do that,
So we wanna do a 10 to 11:30 on the 31st?
yeah,
10:15. Give me
10,
time to drive
15 to
here.
11:45.
Give me
Okay.
time to drive.
yeah. Okay.
Do you have enough time for that?
Yeah, well, just make sure other people are doing the thing. Make it work. We'll have time in the morning, first thing that we could focus on.
And then do we
And-
have other?
So then there's not another time in February.
Mhm.
Friday.
No, I mean, there's the 7th, but we wouldn't be able to turn it around, and then we have, I'm out of town 2 Fridays. And then we have our retreat. So I could do another day, I could do a Monday,
Do we want to look ahead to like March 7th?
I can do March 7th.
I can do March 7th.
So we could at least get that.
Yep.
What time are we doing on March 7th?
8.
Yeah, is it what, 8 to 9:30?
Yeah. So then Sarah and Cindy, will you look for a time and we can do our planning in between all of those?
Yes,
Okay.
January 31st and March 7th.
Yep, and you'll send out notices for us, right?
Yep, just did.
Okay. Okay, all right, and then we're gonna be in,
I need to look, it looks like because of the admin meeting, the 31st of the.
no, I just meant where we're going now. We have a.
Oh, but we could do it in,
Okay, so we can
No,
end
no.
this one.
for the leadership meeting.
Yeah, yeah. Cause I wasn't sure if that was in,
John, usually we do it, or we could do it in Tracy's office, or.
we do it at Tracy's office. rules.
Looks like I did reserve this room for this one.
Oh, okay.
Were there other board members knocking down the door to join?
No, it's the
Policy committee?
leadership. No, it's,
No, I mean for the.
oh,
So this one.
Policy?
no.
Yeah.
No. No one asked me.
I did, there hasn't.